Okay, welcome back, everybody, to Aligning with Success. Your co-host Mike DiMuccio and Dave Rolfe. We are on week 19 of 2025. I'm glad we're doing this in weeks because if you're following along, and if you haven't been following along, you want to be able to go back and actually trace your steps here. This whole process that we've been in, this creates a continuity and really an education in the business as well. We are going to touch on successes from April because we did have goal setting, and we reminded you of that last week. And we're going to touch on achievements in April. But before we do that, we're going to pick up. Dave has got a tight schedule tonight, so he is going to pick up on the next part of the education that we're getting. If you were on last week, it was a really good session. And if you want to understand parts one and two, kind of thing, three actually, you got to pick up on last week's conversation, and then we'll continue tonight. So, Dave, what's tonight's conversation about? We talked about what did I name it? I think we called it awareness of what works. No,
No, conditions of your
yeah,
business.
conditions of your business. And tonight,
We're going to continue on now. Last time what we talked about were the conditions that were going up. And of
right?
course, there's three basically. So this week we're going to discuss what happens when things don't go up. And you'll note that there are three things that can occur when building your business. It can go up, it can go down, or it can go flat, but it barely stays the same over time. So last week we saw the three conditions of up and non-existence to normal and then affluence. And what we're going to talk about are the downward direction tonight, and that's danger, the condition of danger, and the condition of emergency. Now, the names obviously are going to ring bells with you, and they make sense because that's really what they're signifying. But it's kind of an interesting lesson, and we'll see how it looks like in picture form and what the steps are that you need to take to handle it. Now, if we define danger, danger then happens when a statistic that's been going up all of a sudden falls quite sharply. So here, for example, here's a picture of that. So we got this as a volume picture, and you can see that the line goes down, then it goes up, and then it falls sharply. That's danger. Kind of goes across, goes up, falls down again. That's danger. Goes up slightly, then falls down. That's danger. Now, as you can see, the danger condition keeps repeating, and the volume becomes less and less as time moves forward. Now, there's a reason for this, and the reason why this occurred was that the situation was never dealt with. So somebody was not paying attention to this particular situation, which we'll now take a look at. And here are the steps that need to be followed to move out of a danger condition. So the first one is you got to bypass your normal habits and routines. So if we let's say this was your graph up here, and this was your volume over a period of time, and you ran into this first danger condition, whatever you were doing caused that. So what you could have been sleeping on the couch, or you could have been at the lake, or you could have been stopped talking to people, or you could have been going to the bowling alley, you could have been doing something. So what you have to look at is, well, what were you doing? And again, what we've talked about in the last couple of sessions and over the past months or so is, you got to really pay attention to what you're doing. You're the executive, you're the boss, your job is to solve problems. And the only way you can solve the problems is by evaluation of the information. Okay, so bypass habits, normal routines. Number two, you then obviously are going to handle the situation and any danger in it. So if that were income, and that was the statistic that was being looked at, and it fell like that, then what you want to do is, well, what happened? What changed? Where do I need to produce? And so on and so forth. Let's get that handled, and then let's find out what was dangerous about it. Oh, well, you took off for 2 weeks. Okay, that was the dangerous issue. You're not going to do that again, that kind of an activity. What you really want to do is you want to assign yourself this condition so that it's important. Hey, danger. If I don't pay attention here and do something about it, it's going to fall even further, and so on and so forth. And now here's the next part. And I thought this was rather fascinating because this is really an important issue. It's sometimes misunderstood, is get your own personal ethics by finding out what you are doing that is out ethics. Now, let's define ethics because this is really crucial. Ethics consists simply of the actions an individual takes on himself. It's a personal thing. When one is ethical or has his ethics in, it is by his own determinism and it is done by himself. Interesting. And from the dictionary, ethics is the study of the general nature of morals of a specific moral choices to be made by the individual in his relationship with others. So let's say, for example, you're the breadwinner, you're responsible for making money, and you go out and you go loafing and you stop paying attention to your business, your statistic crashes. Well, what you got to look at there is your own ethics of what you agreed to do was violated. So you went out of ethics with the situation. And as a result, this is what you want to pay attention to because the next action is going to be important. You want to recognize and reorganize your life so that the dangerous situation is not continuously happening to you. And then you want to formulate and adopt firm policy that will here and after detect and prevent the same situation from continuing to occur. So, a lot of times when we're doing network marketing, it's an emotionally based business. We get out there, we talk to people, we have highs, we have lows, and then, it's kind of like, well, that's the way it is. I kind of didn't talk to enough people. You kind of self-regulate what's going on. But sometimes for many people, it doesn't work that that's the only way to look at it or how to handle it because not everybody gets to the top. And that's what we're trying to resolve here as a way to, run a business, run your life, run your business. This applies to anything else. So there you go on the danger condition. Now you can see where this condition falls in the hierarchy of conditions. So non-existence, danger, emergency, normal, affluent. So danger is above non-existence. And the reason why it is above that is because you've got some production you've been monitoring and showing, and it's fallen off. So you're not in non-existence and you're not normal. You actually fell off your normal track. So that's the key that we want to look at. And it's above non-existence because your production results and that have dropped off in the upward direction have now moved downward. Now, this happens a lot in our business, especially if you are not paying attention. But in theory, if you are building, then your key statistics should be on a steady climb. So this is an example of somebody that was making presentations. You can see it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, but the overall trend is growth. So one could look at it in like week 3 or 4 and say, well, it's not doing very well. You only got three, but overall the trend is moving up. So it changes your viewpoint from being slightly negative to being positive in the long run, so that you begin to see that your actions are actually creating result. And in our business, because results sometimes take time and people don't see them right away, then they misapply what they should be doing. They give up too quickly. They have a failed purpose for what they're doing and they fall off the truck, so to speak, and stop building the business. Now, this picture of weekly presentations, which made over time, is on a rise over long term. Some dips, some are bigger long term. The trend is upward. It's the downward, then you want to do something about that. So in a down week, you apply danger. In an up week, you apply normal. In a straight up, you see. So what it does, what these conditions do is it allows you to, whatever the condition is based on the graph or chart you're creating, then you apply that formula. And it takes the guesswork out of what to do. And this has been proven over time, big time. It's a really fascinating concept. Okay, so now after danger, the next one up is emergency. Now, emergency comes by a slight downtrend or straight across. Now, things do not remain static. They're not going to just go straight across forever and a day. Here's a graph of gross income over a period of almost a year. It's pretty much flat. It's got ups and downs. So it's got a peak in The third month, it's got a couple of other peaks, but generally from the beginning to the end, it's flat. So from a business perspective, we would call this an emergency condition because one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to go up or it's going to go down, not going to stay here. So if you don't apply the right condition, then more than likely you're going to fall down and get into a danger or even get into non-existence. Or if you apply the right condition, then you will move up into an uptrend and go into normal, go into affluence, or even higher after that. Now, it's pretty flat after 10 months, and things don't remain that way. So remember, urgency is above danger, and here are the steps. The first one is produce. So if you're an individual, you would produce. If you're a business enterprise and you have many employees, you'd promote. So from the standpoint of Nikken, if Nikken was flatlining like that, for the individual distributors that were the same picture, they would produce, but the company would promote. And it's two different functions, but it's designed to move forward. You'll see how this is going. So the first thing you put your attention on is what are you going to do to produce and produce more to then cause the statistic to go up. Number two, you want to change your operating basis. Now, what does that mean? Well, all results are caused by what you do. So your operating basis, let's say you get up at 5 and you go to get a coffee and you go do your administration and you go for a jog or you go for a walk or whatever the case may be, and you go about your day to make a few phone calls, you go to a couple of meetings, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that operating basis needs to change because that operating basis caused you to have this flat line across the road. You need to produce more. So we're going to talk about organization after this series on conditions. That'll be the next step. It's a rather fascinating subject in its own right. Number three, economize. Now here it relates to time and energy, which could include money. So in other words, you're not going to waste your resources. You're going to tighten your resources. You're going to economize your time. You're going to make every moment count. And the same thing with the economic side and finances. You're just not going to spend money here in this condition. You're going to tighten up your belt and just conserve and focus your attention on doing something else, which is primarily produce. And then number four is prepare to deliver. What does that mean? So here you're going to be doing activities that are going to increase your statistics. So you need to prepare for this and get ready to handle the new growth. Because if you don't get ready to handle the new growth, again, you'll do all this work and then it'll go by you and you're not paying attention and you've got to apply the condition that the statistics create. And so here you need to stiffen your ethical behavior or you need to stiffen discipline. Well, what is discipline? Well, discipline is the practice of training people to obey rules or a code of behavior using punishment or correct disobedience. So now, not going to the movies and having an expensive dinner when you're in a condition of emergency would be what we're talking about. There would be the discipline. So you wouldn't spend, you wouldn't do, you would focus your attention on what needs to be done because if you're in a flatline emergency, it's going to probably fall off if you don't do anything, but you want it to grow so it normalizes and gets into the higher condition. So so now we've covered the conditions from non-existence to affluence. There's non-existence, danger, emergency, normal, and affluence. This document we'll make available. I just have to post it somewhere. We'll figure it out, probably on the Smart Networker, and I'll put it on the Core Consultants. But it's also going to be in all the videos that we did for the first 2 weeks. Now, one actually goes up the scale here and applies the condition based on what the picture states. So it's a picture of a graph. If it's going up, that's normal. If it's going straight up, that's affluence. If it's going straight across, that's emergency. If it's going slightly down, that's danger. And if it's nothing is happening, that's non-existence. And you just apply the various conditions for that. And I've been doing this for the past, I don't know, 50 years in every business I've done in my own personal life. And sometimes I hit it right and sometimes I misapply it. But here's what I know. When you misapply it, you go down twice as far as you came from rather than going up. And if you apply it correctly, it keeps moving you up. And I'll show you a graph at the end of this with which was my graph in Nikken from 1990 to 1999, where I went from zero to power change. And the power change for me, which we will discuss next week, was the writing of my book and passing on the hat to others, which we'll talk about next week. Anyway, now for your distribution business, you have a number of statistics that you may be applying in many different conditions based on the specific area. So, for example, you're probably going to be doing phone calls. So you should have a graph on your phone calls. You got to do emails. You got a graph on your emails. You should do text. You got text graph, etc. Presentations made, follow-up calls, sales made, gross income, distributors signed up, ABCs done, Zooms attended, number of guests on Zoom, number of guests at meetings. So in other words, all your doing activities
Those are what we call
should be graphed.
KPIs. We should probably be nice to get just that, because then what we could ask everybody to do this, is you create on the left-hand side your KPI, the name, and then
Yeah.
across the top is every day of the calendar.
Yes.
Number one, two, three, four, all the way across to 31. And then you can actually start tracking the number per day. And my goodness, if you've got your KPIs and your tracking number on a daily basis, your business is going to grow almost implicitly, because what you measure matters. And when you measure it and then you get some critique or you get some feedback, it'll multiply. So you're definitely on the right track if you're measuring these things.
Yeah. So in other words, again, what I did was I needed to make $8,000 a month. So my main statistic was gross income. So that was my main statistic. So whatever happened at the end of the month, that figure became the condition that I would operate on. But then I had sub stats. So it first started with number of distributors that were active, then it went to leaders, silvers, golds, platinums, diamonds, royal diamonds. Then it changed as the business grew because there were more important things like auto ships were very important. I found out a third of my income came from auto ships, a third came from building the business, and a third came from qualifying. So qualified leaders was another interesting statistic to monitor. Now, remember what your job is, and this is critical, and Mike nailed it there. You're the boss. You're the owner of your business, and it's your job to solve the problems and increase production so that you reach your goals. And you do that only by evaluating your production and your results. And anything less than that should be unacceptable from the standpoint of success. So that's what these are all about. So next week we'll finish off the conditions by looking at the very top, which is power and power plus, and below non-existence, which goes liability, doubt, treason, confusion, enemy. It really gets into how you can screw yourself by not applying the right condition and end up in the toilet. So anyway, there you go for today. Thanks, Michael. Let's move on to the
Well,
next
thanks,
topic.
Dave. Does anybody have any questions before we move on? Does anybody have a specific question that you'd like to ask?
I'd just like to comment. I think it's nice to hear the different terminology for kind of the same principles that we've been talking about and doing and learning, I think, over the years. So it was helpful to hear it used in the terminology that you were using, Dave.
If I were to encapsulate what we're hearing here, it's like it's a formulaic response, action reaction, just a formula for how to treat a business. It's a business management tool, if you will. And if you're not tracking anything, of course, you don't know if it's going up or if it's going down or if it's going across. If you're not tracking anything, you're not going to be able to use this tool. So the first thing, in order to even be able to use this tool, is to start tracking what we were just talking about, those KPIs, those things that are measurements related to the business that affect the business and the outcome that you're looking for. So if you had just that list of KPIs, and just tracked, the calls you make every day, the follow-up calls, the volume, the etc. Auto ships, that's a big deal. If you looked at that, if you were just measuring that, you would become aware of what to do, especially when you have a tool like this to say, okay, it's horizontal. So we look at our notes and say, okay, what do we do when the curve is horizontal? What are we in? We're in emergency, so we need to do something different than what we've been doing before we get into danger, because that's likely what's going to happen if we do nothing. So it gives us the tool to assess our business. Of course, none of this matters if you're not really operating a business. But if you want Nikken to become something significant for you, then making those course corrections along the way become critical for your development. It's like an airplane without a GPS. Good luck. Who knows where you're going to end up? But with a GPS system, you're able to make those course corrections and get where you want to go. So it's a great tool for business management. I mean, you probably have to go to university or something to even get this kind of education. I don't even know because I never got it. But I do know keeping track of what matters and seeing how it's trending determines the next steps, what actions I need to take. Paula, question?
Yeah, this may seem silly, but what's a KPI?
Oh, those are, does anybody have the actual definition? Key
Key performance indicators.
indicators. Yeah, key performance indicators. So they're the things like your income, like your volume, like your calls. Those are key performance indicators. So key being they're the high priority items in your business.
You know,
Madeline. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
it's funny because I used to work for the government, and I worked for the unemployment office at the time, and my job as a statistician was to keep track of how many phone calls, how many people in person that the different reps had seen every single day. And so my whole day was on the calculator going click, 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 click. And I ended up at the end of the day with probably 3 rolls of adding machine paper in one long stretch. And my boss was such a tightwad, he'd make me roll it up and use the backside the next day. Like, how efficient is that?
And somebody was paying you to do that. So it's obviously important. We had another hand up. Was there another hand up? Okay.
Yeah, my hand was up.
Okay. Anybody else? Well, let's have a look at this in the context of, oh, I don't know, last month. So last month we set goals at the beginning of April like we do every month. Thanks, Dave. And if you need to jump off, I know. So we set goals in April like we do every month. And of course, if we're not doing any statistics, if we're not tracking any activity, if we don't even know what our key performance indicators are, I will say one of the first ones, the most obvious, is number of new contacts made. The second highest priority would be number of follow-up calls made. The third highest priority would be ABC calls made, because that means you're moving somebody along a process. You're going from initial contact to the follow-up to assess, and then the scheduling of the ABC. That's a movement. You're moving them through a process. And so if you're not keeping any statistics of your process, we don't know where your plus minus is. We don't know. How many of you guys watch hockey? How many of you guys watched that atrocious game last night? So if you're not Leaf fans, you don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this all you hear all night is stats. As the announcers are monitoring the game, they're constantly giving you statistics. They show up on the screen, the statistics, and they go back like 40 years and stuff like that. How do they keep track of those things and how it's at their fingertips is unbelievable. But why? Well, these people are being paid money, big money. And there's only one way to know how somebody's doing, if they're keeping up with their contracts, if they're falling behind their contracts, if their contract is worth renewing, if they're asking for a raise in their upcoming contract renewals. How do you know what a person's worth if it's not just a function of emotion? It has to be a function of statistics. So they keep track of very critical things: shots on goal, They got a plus minus thing, and when they're on the ice, how many goals go in, how many goals do they let in, how many goals do they score? It's a plus minus. All of these things are important factors when you're determining the value of a player. Well, you're a player in your business. Your value is based on your performance. That's the beautiful thing about Nikken, is that we get paid what we're worth. And if you don't like what you're getting paid, you got to look at your performance. And so that means look at the statistics. What are the stats and what needs improvement? And then once you identify that, if you need help in figuring out, okay, I made 5 calls, but I only got 1 callback, or I made 15 calls and I only got 3 callbacks, or whatever it is. If you want to make an improvement on that, improve your skill, at least we know what we're looking at. At least we know what we're talking about. So not keeping track of your stats is not very good business. And especially if you want to be able to duplicate, help other people when they call you and say, I don't know what's wrong. It's not working. Okay. I get that call a lot. Can we narrow that down? What is not working? Nikken's still in business, right? Okay, it's working. You can place an order, right? Yeah, okay, it's working. They send the checks on time still, right? Yeah, okay, it's working. What exactly is not working for you? And then you can start to look at those statistics more, and you'll see, okay, well, here's the problem. And so, yeah, this is a good lesson in business. Madeline.
So to take it a step further, whether it's the hockey game or what we're doing, so far the KPIs that you listed are all the activities that we need to do to create the outcomes. So in hockey, it's the score and who wins. And so the other KPIs are the PV, the OV, the PGV, number of new customers, number of new distributors, percentage that you have that are active. And I just spent almost 6 days with our colleagues here at Nag's Head at Barb Satterwhite's house. And Mary Bowser is a platinum that has helped corporate create the new website. She's really spent a lot of time with the website developers and the We Academy and all of and whatever's going on now, a lot of time with Frank. And so we've been frustrated because we've been using the old one and all these complications coming into the new one with all of that data. But what she said is all of this is there, and that's what they're working on, and more of it is going to be coming out. We just need to know where to find it and how to use it. But I remember you and Dave are always talking about old stories, but when AutoShip was required, a minimum of 100 of AutoShip, and when you printed out your whole genealogy, at the end of every month, there was a cover page. I don't know if you remember that, but it had all of these on it. And so I would print it out. I have my old ones downstairs and compare this month to that month to the next month and be able to see where the growth was then. I didn't have the graphs and so forth. But apparently we have that in process, and some of it's there. We just don't know how to find it right now. And they're learning that as well from what I picked up from just listening to conversation. And I really needed a timeout when I was there. So I didn't watch all that they were doing, but I know who to contact. And Mary is a really very valuable resource. And some of the Thursday evenings when Jeff has Frank on or whatever, to have on his entrepreneurs being more, they'll cover some of this on
Yeah,
the Thursday
very
night.
good. Yeah.
They're all recorded too. And I be honest, I haven't gone through all the We Academy and all that stuff that's in there. So apparently there's a lot available that's been created, some that was taken off to be updated, and it sounds like more is coming because of being seamless with Latin America and whoever else on, I guess, at least the compensation plan, pricing and so forth, and catalog items might be different in different countries and within countries. I mean, within Latin America with the different countries and your provinces in Canada. So it behooves us to learn a little bit more. And when we don't understand it, we can text Frank and he wants those texts. We can text and ask that information and to attend these other teaching seminars that there are. And there are a lot that are recorded.
It sounds complicated. It sounds like, oh my God, there's so many moving parts. How does
But it really
anybody
is.
how does anybody make any headway? Well, the truth of the matter is, how many of you have a phone, a cell phone? I mean, you want to talk about a complicated device. I don't think it
It's
gets any
complicated.
more, I don't think it gets more complicated, but the ease with which we can use it is based on our understanding of how to apply the technology. The technology is complicated. The use, they've simplified it to point and click. So, I mean, a 5-year-old can learn. A 3-year-old is, you ever go to a restaurant and see parents with their 3-year-olds and the tablets in front of them, and these kids are just sitting like, holy smokes. So yeah, they've made the technology, very complicated technology, easy to use. But it's only easy to use when you start pushing buttons. So it's important that you familiarize yourself with the tools that you have at your disposal because they are for you. They're not for somebody else. Your back office is for you. And it does give you some information and highlights that are, I think, really important, especially as you develop. I do want to get to, we'll answer your question or go to you, Barbara, next, but I want to bring us to the stats for April. I think it's important that we don't just gloss over it, that we really look at our business and say, okay, what was April about for me? And I hope you're not shy because everybody has, as the graph shows, we have ups and down months, you know, um, and and I think it's important that we take a look at what we did. Therefore, we can assess what we can do better in the month of May. Barbara.
Only comment I was going to make was as we're familiarizing ourselves with the new platform, Frank repeatedly says, you can't break it. Play with it. Familiarize yourself with it because you can't break it. And I think so many of us learning new technology are afraid that we're going to hit something and it's going to delete everything or it's going to change the way it appears and we won't be able to find our way back. And it's just by doing and playing with it that we do familiarize ourselves with where to find things. I'm still finding stuff I didn't know was there, and I probably will for some time to come. But we just have to set aside some time to familiarize ourselves with the different links and where to find things. And the extra trainings are going to help with that. And Mary is a wizard. Mary Bowser is an absolute wizard when it comes to teaching.
Well, we should have
That's all
Mary volunteer to
and I
teach, I
met my
guess.
goals in April.
Oh, okay. So let's start with that. You set your goal and met your goal in April. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear goal achievement. Congratulations on setting a goal and achieving the goal. Barbara, just before you jump off there, then, what was the key to achieving the goal?
Um,
And
having a
let me ask
plan.
you, did you okay, you had a plan. Let's go through this. Did you achieve the goal last minute or was it like well in hand in the middle of the month or what? How,
No, I planned it at the beginning of the month, but the person that I was working with is notoriously last minute. So I had to keep doing prompts. You don't want to miss out on it by leaving it to the last minute. The timing of the month, month end, systems can be very, very busy. Or if you go to put an order in and it happens to be a Saturday online and you're having a problem, your SOL, you can't speak to Niken, and so you're going to miss out on what you're trying to achieve. So I knew ahead of time that this person is last minute, always last minute, but I also knew the desire was there. So it was just a matter of prompts throughout the month. And now I'm the goal with her is, and she went executive. So, each month I've been working with her to keep her moving forward. She's loving the products. She's got some prospects, But she said, I don't know when I'm going to get time to speak with them. I said, well, don't worry about it. Give me their names, introduce me to them, and let's get things in motion. I'll work with you to get them, you know, at least initiate them into the process. If they're interested, fine. If they're not, that's okay too.
Okay,
But
okay.
let's start somewhere.
Let's
So,
keep our
you know,
answers
it's sometimes
short and to
difficult
the
working
point.
with some
Otherwise, okay. It's really important on this
Yeah.
call, guys. This is practice for how you are in real life. If you go on and on and on, you're going to lose your audience, like you just lost me. So don't go into the minutia. Keep it to the points. People only care about the points. They don't need all the details. The wind was blowing, the sun was shining, the trees were waving. It's like, no, just get to the point. We had a great day. So, okay,
Thank
thanks for
you.
that. Thank you. Anybody else? Let's hear it, guys. Goals achieved, goals not achieved. What can we learn from this last month? What can you contribute to this call, to this community from your experience of last month? I don't see any hands. I don't see anybody unmuting. It's
I
not
have
a
a new
test.
goal
You,
for
you
May,
can't
Mike.
you can't fail. It's not, there's no judgment. It's really simply about becoming masterful at your craft. Maureen?
Hi, my goal last month was, thinking back here, to sponsor someone and to support the people I already had. So I ended up sponsoring someone who, and I spent the first half of the month putting out fires, so to speak, because basically initially they wanted to be just wholesale customers. And then all of a sudden this panic set in for both of them about, timing and how can I balance this and that in my life with Niken. And what I learned was to sort of step back and let them kind of vent and then say, you can do everything the way you want. There's no pressure. And if you want to go slow, that's fine. If you just want to buy the products wholesale, that's fine. So that was the first half of the month, was just putting out fires. And the learning for me as a leader was to step back and not try and solve the problem for them, but let them solve it themselves in a sense and reassure them. Sort of the middle of the month, I was going cross-eyed, answering constant questions from the person that went executive by the end of the month. And she wanted to go slow, and I was fine. Let me help you if you want. I'll talk with people. And it was funny because she just, for someone who wanted to go slow, she got really enthusiastic and ended up giving out samples, demonstrating with her necklace, and buying things for herself that she thought was of value. And as a result, at the end of the month, she went from direct to senior to executive. My concern is I'm about to leave for Scotland for 2 weeks, and I want to be able to support her if she has questions and answers. But I think Barbara just reminded me that it's there's an ABC process, so I will connect her with Barbara.
Yes, build the relationships. It's really important that you connect people on your team with others. If they don't feel like they're part of a community, if they just feel like they're a one-off and you're their sole source of connection, they don't get the experience of community. They don't get the value of what it means to be part of Niken. So part of your recruitment and onboarding process, in fact, it used to have it right in our getting started booklet. It would be to introduce one of the first things. There it is, number 10. Number 10. It says, I'll read it to you. Be introduced to your upline team. And it goes 6 generations up because that's how the compensation plan works. So it was part of the protocol, standard protocol, and I think it should be part of your standard protocol to introduce people to their upline because there is a vested interest in that, and it's relationship building, and it creates a sense of community. And then we get to know people by name, and they'll feel more comfortable about joining other calls and things like that. It doesn't take a lot. It could be just a 5-minute call. Say, I've got somebody I want to introduce you to. This should take no more than 2 or 3 minutes. I just want you to hear their voice, let them know that you exist, and that's it. And that experience fortifies their feeling that they're not out on a limb, that they're part of a community that's very welcoming. So write that down. That should be part of your standard procedure when you enroll somebody, is part of their onboarding, is to meet the community, meet the team. Barbara?
I have said to my active downline that let's set up a Zoom for me to meet your new people so that they'll know me to see me when we're on the presentations. They'll know that they can reach out to me when you're not available. And we've discussed it several times. It's just a matter
Let
of
me
getting
just,
a
I
time
was just,
that,
I was gonna
that
say,
it can happen.
I was gonna say, when you involve more than one person, you got a scheduling issue, which can procrastinate the thing ever happening. Don't rely on Zoom to make that happen. A phone
Mhm.
call is enough. They just need to hear the person's voice. A lot of
Yeah.
communication happens in the voice.
Because
So
I
yeah,
put out Barbara's idea to my team, and the silence has been deafening.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
and
What would
a
be
few
better
people's
is,
emails went into junk.
yeah, what's actually better is you have Barbara on the call with you, and you call them and say, "Hey, don't want to take too much of your time. Got 2 seconds here. I just want to introduce you to Barbara. She's your upline teammate. She's part of the process. Just want to say hi, just to give you 2 seconds to say hello, and then we'll connect another time." And just do that, like boom, 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 boom.
Particularly now with you going to Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. It's the simplest way to do it. Have Barbara already on the call, and that way they'll pick up your call because they know you, and there's no scheduling conflict. There's just a hello, hello. Oh, that was nice, and that was that. Comes and goes quick. And by the way, that's another thing that's really important. How simple it appears this business is determines how involved somebody is going to get, even from the very beginning, the very first presentation. If it doesn't appear simple, if it seems like there's a lot of moving parts to this, then you're going to lose people because they don't have time. I mean, that's the precious commodity that no one has enough of. Ever wonder why nobody has any time? What if they have time, there's a problem. That's that's a for sure sign of a problem. So people don't have time as a rule. And so that's the number one objection because, as a rule, they don't feel they have time. They make time for the things that are important and they adjust their schedule to accommodate whatever needs to be accommodated. But if it doesn't, they're not entertaining ways of using more time in their life. They're looking to optimize what they've got already going, not adding more to it. So if we're already walking into that situation, then your greatest tool to overcome the time objection is to actually acknowledge that it's an objection, acknowledge that it's the problem, and that it will continue to be the problem until other things become priorities, such as a way to leverage time. To learn how to multiply time and leverage time is the greatest the greatest gift you could ever offer somebody. They could walk around with a limp for the rest of their life in pain. But if you give them a way to leverage time and multiply time, they'll be happy with their pain, their limp. You know what I'm saying? What's the greater gift? Time, irreplaceable. So learn to use that as a strategy, not as a hindrance. And so part of this process then of how can I make my presentation, how can I make my partnering process so streamlined that it's simple for anybody to do. That's what Leo was working on. Years ago, when Leo was building his platinum ship, his downline looked at him and said, I don't want to work as hard as you're working. So he realized that the way he was building was not attractive. He had to reformat and create a simpler way for people to be able to follow. And that becomes now a system, and a system that's simple and easy to follow is easy to teach, is easy to duplicate. That's the key to success in network marketing. It's not what you do, write this down, it's what you duplicate. Madeline.
Well, everything that everybody talked about is what I want to address. So, and succinctly. So I knew that I needed to shift out of this mode of sitting here and back into activity again. And I was the one that brought up the 21 Club at the Boss event a year ago. So I didn't have anybody on my team that wanted to do a 21 Club. So I did the Crossline 21 Club with Michelle. And so we saw 17 people, and it was a good learning experience for both of us. And I've always said every 21 Club is a successful 21 Club because we practiced together and we saw that many people. So it was good for the both of us. And she has people in the pipeline, and it was good for me. And because of that activity, and let me see where some of the other things I was doing. Barb mentioned her upline. I've never had a strong upline. So this team, each one of you, Team Diamond in the past, any crossline have always been my upline and events that I went to. And because I didn't have that upline, you just said about the complexity, and because I love teaching the complexity, people always called me. And so I didn't use an ABC enough. So what I was always the A. And then I had people say to me the same thing that was said to Leo. I don't want to work like you do. I don't know what you do, so I can't do what you do. And I said, I don't want to keep doing what I'm doing either. So let's help me. You've helped a lot by interrupting me and saying, go on to the next thing. So retail PV went up because I sold some things while I was busy doing more ABCs. And the other thing I did was followed up on the people that I sponsored earlier. So Victoria and some others that are in the pipeline. So my activities were all productivity activities that the only indicator that went up, the only KPI for this month was retail sales. The others were still stable. However, it wasn't growth in the others, but it was working in the pipeline more efficiently. So the proof will be in the pudding later on. And
I think we need to get, some of you guys are good at this. Maybe we'll get that draft from Dave, but we need to get those KPIs. I think it's really critical we get those KPIs and start using that tool. Honestly, it's so relevant.
I'm going to put another plug in for Mary, which she was teaching. So the KPIs are all on this website, and they're on a spreadsheet, and you can move them from this kind of spreadsheet to that kind. And she was teaching the whole time, so she would be a good person to.
Is it in the? If I'm not mistaken, it's part of the 90-day plan in the.
And she knows how to do it right with her. Yeah, she pulled our own up. She showed what she did, and she showed how you can move it to here to there. And they're going to be doing more with it. That'll be coming from them to us.
That's important. Okay, so what we're taking here from today's class, let's call it master class, is that you got to measure stuff that, and just not anything, the things that matter in our business. There's a handful of things that are absolutely critical. How many people are you contacting? Every new people you're contacting? How many people are you following up that you've contacted? How many ABCs? You know, this is important, measuring it, because if you don't measure it, we cannot know how it's trending, and you can't move forward. If you want to increase your income, you've got to know how you're trending and those key things that have to be trending up. I remember when I first got involved in NECANN, our headmaster, coach, trainer, mentor was a fellow by the name of Larry Prophet, you might remember. And he used to walk around with the flip chart presentation. And that's how we learned how to do a presentation in NECANN before we had digital tools and things like that. But the one slide that said marketing system. So here we go. The marketing system. This is the pièce de résistance. This is the key to the whole thing. It just said A, B, C. It was a triangle. It said A, B, C. That was the entire image on the screen. Marketing system, A, B, C.
Mike,
So
I have
how-
that old flip chart. I have it up on a tripod in I have a wellness center and a teaching kind of place. And so I have it on that.
Yeah.
And everything
so-
else is on display. I said, that's it. And I need to be the bee and be quiet more often.
And
We all-
every single call, every Zoom call is an ABC. Every one of them. Even if it's a training, it's an ABC. Because if you've got a guest on it, it's an ABC. By definition, you're the B, the guest is the C, and whatever is going on, the presenter or presenters is the A. And when you get a call, when you get even a guest on a call like this one, like I don't know if anybody's, I can see the names. Mostly people are not a guest here, but even if you had a guest and we made a point of not identifying the guest, of not addressing the guest, to give them permission to be a fly on the wall so that they're not uncomfortable. And then they don't feel like we're performing for them. But they got to actually just witness today's call, which is very transparent, very educational, very informative, very good business information. What do you think these people would think of this community, of what's going on here? Would you not think that they would think, wow, this is a pretty cool group of people, and they don't talk frivolous stuff. They don't talk crappy stuff. They talk about real deal. This would become an interesting thing for them. This would add to the value of what you're offering. They would see Nikken as a more legitimate vehicle because, first of all, we're all legitimate, but we're not flying the pan. We're not hyping this up. We're not showboating. We're not, you know what I'm saying? If a guest was sitting here listening to this conversation, I'm pretty sure they'd be impressed with the level of integrity and community that's offered here, and the business insights that they would be able to glean from and develop a business. It's beautiful. So every event is an ABC. Therefore, what the message I'm saying is, use the events to introduce people. Just do it. Maureen, and then Leo, and then Barbara, and then we'll wrap.
I was just going to add another learning from the last month, based on previous mistakes years ago, was that I didn't basically barf Nikken on this person. I answered the questions she sent me, and as she progressed, I said, well, sort of bad luck on your slow thing. You've now progressed. You need to know this. And so as she progressed, I added information to her. And when she's ready to sponsor someone, and she may be sponsoring somebody soon, then there's another level that I'll give to her. But rather than give her the whole buffet, I was just giving her a dish at a time, and that seemed to have worked. And so what I've built is a trust that I will answer questions. I won't overwhelm her, and she feels comfortable in asking questions, and maybe even forwarding some of my answers to people that she was asking on their behalf. So that has
Perfect.
been my learning.
You know what I've learned in the past 10 years is the process seems to be, it has slowed down, meaning people don't buy on hype, not quality people. The people that we're looking for, the people who are legit and have staying power and have definite goals and ambition, they don't buy in on hype. So if you come along and you appear to be hype, or you bring them to a meeting and it appears to be hype, they're turned off.
Mm-hmm.
So the pace has slowed down. So it's much more deliberate, much more of an interaction, which is why this form of marketing will always be superior to digital marketing, because digital marketing is exactly what it is. We know when AI is talking to us on social media. it doesn't feel real. They're not talking with me, they're talking to me. And unless you really want what it is they're selling, you're not buying. So the interpersonal, the relationship, that's what makes this thing work. Leo.
Okay, it's okay. Okay, Mike. Hi, guys. That's true about the system because when I become platinum, I worked so hard. I made 1,000 kilometers a week. Okay, meeting, demonstration, everything. But now with the COVID, I create a system, a 5-step. And this weekend, I just take my list of 15% promotion, right? Okay, and I begin to. You see that? I just start a Saturday and yesterday, but not Sunday. I don't call nobody. It's a Mother's Day. But I just made a few calls and I said for a consultant or client many years ago, and I explained my system. So, oh, sounds good. Because you know me 10 years ago, you don't want to do what I do. I'm stupid. I work. That's what I said. Just, can you share the video with your phone? I said, of course I can. That's what I do every day. I share my system. Step one, I have 3 questions. You know, for work, for make money, you have a job? Yes. 82% hate their job. The second, you have a real estate, insurance, owner of the restaurant, yeah. On the third, what is the third one? Made the 21st century business. What's that? Okay, I take my phone. I shoot the video I did to them. That's it. And Mike, you see that my presentation, 2 video I shared to the group and presentation. And 2 days, guys, I just shared that 70 new view. That's the meeting. Same thing like I do.
Can you imagine
meeting.
if he had to do 70 different presentations, driving back and forth?
I did that. And the coffee shop with my phone, take my coffee, choop, choop, choop. And when I called, every guy I called, I said, I share to you something. Can you share that for me? Of course I can do that. Ta-da! It's easy. 70 new view, only 48 hours. Can you do that? It's easy to share. It's easy to duplicate. That's what I do. Thank you.
Thank you, Leo. And I note that you tracked the number of views. So that's important because it's not just the number of shares, it's the number of views, which means people actually saw. And so there's a statistic he's keeping track of. That's important. Excellent. All right, it's 9 o'clock. Let's wrap. Thanks everybody for joining. Next Monday is week 20, and it'll be the third part of this series of your business metrics, how to evaluate and move your business forward. Thanks for joining. Have a great week. Enjoy May 17. It's coming up.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody. It was a great